Okay, we're live. Some technical issues, but slowly but surely ironing them out. So maybe I'll start by doing this little introduction about what we're doing over here at PodFest Asia. By the way, my name is Wayne. I just want to take a second to thank you for watching this live podcast taping or listening to this podcast replay. And I want to give a special thank you to all the supporters that we have on Patreon since 2020 and those who are now joining us on Substack. Our Patreon and Substack accounts make this podcast possible, and it makes all these interviews and all of the thoughts that you'll be hearing right here, making it all possible. We are very grateful to everyone who supports the creator economy and the myriad of new shows that we recently launched in May and June as well. So if you would like to support, you can go to podfestasia.substack.com. That's podfestasia.substack.com. And you can also become a supporter. Get access to some cool bonus episodes that we release every month for supporters only. And you could even get access to all our free NFTs of the month club. So we send out really cool digital collectibles every single month. And it keeps my mouth talking, and it keeps my head giving and taking as well. So keeps basically all these things going. So if you like these podcasts and you would like to support the podcast, we would really appreciate it. And that's the message before the show. So without further ado, my first guest for tonight, I call him Taka, and he's someone who is in the blockchain space for quite a number of years now. He's also the founder of Blockchain Center Singapore. He's the head of sales APAC for Copper.co. He's also a podcast host just like me. And he also has a cool Substack newsletter. So please do check it out. The name of his podcast is Future Design Podcast. So without further ado, let me bring our friend Taka on to our podcast virtual stage. How are you, my friend?
Good, man. How you doing? Lovely to be here.
How am I doing? I'm ATL, health-wise. ATL doesn't stand for Atlanta. It stands for at the lowest. My fitness, my health, I've been struggling with my health issue for quite a bit ever since all the gyms are closed during this mini lockdown. So how have you been keeping, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I actually work out every day. I started jogging in the morning as well. So get 2 exercises in a day. I'm not going to let COVID drag me down and make me unfit. So just trying to keep everything up to date and keep fit.
Well, I think you just shared one of the hacks, which is basically wake up super early and go jogging, right? That's one way to keep fit. I could never do that. I'm more like a gym rat. I need to lift stuff. I need to be able to change my attire so that there's no excuse for me to leave the gym now. I'm going to be stuck here for the next hour, and it keeps me very disciplined whenever I'm at the gym. But when the gyms are closed, that's when I really struggle. I could never get myself, go jog under this hot weather. But of course, how's the weather conditions normally during the early hours when you do your fitness routine?
Yeah, I try to run before 7:30. Obviously, I'm not a huge morning waker, so it's not like I wake up at 4:30, 5:30. But before 7:30, it's pretty all right. I mean, it's not too hot. The sun's not blazing. Humidity is fine, so it's good. I'll put in like a 20-30 minute run, hit the showers, go straight to work. Yeah, I'm all good by then. But yeah, I agree with you. I practiced jujitsu for many years, and I miss going to the gym. I miss putting on the gi, strangling and choking people. That's all that stuff was really fun. But it's been on a 14-month hiatus at the moment, so I really love to get back. To be honest, I hate doing the gym stuff at home.
100%. I think it's dangerous to do gym stuff at home. I think there's a video that went viral when people try to lift stuff at home, right? Either, they fall flat on their face, or there are even some people who like to do their gym work or fitness program using VR goggles, right? And they ended up crashing into the wall. So, definitely a very dangerous spot to do gymming at home. I try not to do that because I just, couldn't do any exercise at the moment. But there's always a silver lining in the clouds. I think we're just one more week away when all the gyms are reopened and we can finally exercise, right? So there are already some viewers on LinkedIn who are like commenting on this. asking, is this live? This is definitely live because you could see earlier on with some technical issues where I think the internet is not so great tonight because it's prime time, right? And I think this listener or this person who's viewing this live on LinkedIn, he's asking, we are using the same microphone. Yes, absolutely. This is our favorite, right? Rodecaster Pro, Pod
It's the
mic.
best, man. It's the best.
Yeah, where did you get your gear from? Did you pick it up from the US or from Hong Kong or from Singapore?
I just bought it on Amazon, and so I guess it's from the US. But I think the Rode is made in Australia, right? If I remember correctly. Sorry,
Yes,
where?
it's an Australian brand, and I think they are doing some great in terms of like delivering really great, high quality products. Yeah, it sounds really great, and that's something that I noticed when I listened to your show. Unfortunately, haven't listened to your new episode yet, but I've listened into a few of your recent episodes, and it's one of those must listen podcasts, especially when it's made in Singapore. You're based here in Singapore, so I think this is probably a good time for us to also ask you, maybe give yourself maybe to maybe talk us, walk through exactly, what you do. Basically, your, I know that you are the APAC head of sales for Copper.co. In terms of as a business, what's that all about? And also how you got started and what are the goals of your company, especially. So maybe over to you for the next 5 minutes. Please walk us through.
Sure. I'll give you the same pitch that I give to my clients. So the company was built out in 2018. A lot of us were from the traditional finance. I myself spent 2 decades in traditional finance, the first half in global investment banking, the other half hedge funds, worked for a hedge fund. I started my own hedge fund. And clearly we see the complexity of trading crypto versus the traditional capital markets. The main differences are that you have to move your funds onto the crypto exchanges. You will have to wait for network validations. You have to pay gas fees along the way. So, these exchanges are based in Seychelles or, Panama, Barbudas, China. Institutional investors don't want to move funds across to those exchanges. So what we were looking for is a way so that it kind of mirrors the traditional capital markets where funds still sit in custody. The clearing houses clear the trades, settle the trades. What we're bringing that into copper as well. So the funds don't need to move on to different exchanges. We're integrated, highly integrated with those exchanges, where the exchanges also custody funds with us. So what we do is knit off the trades in the back end inside copper rather than at the exchange side. So clients don't have to take the counterparty risk at the exchanges. You don't have to wait for network validations. In the case of like Bitcoin, Ethereum, it takes hours, if not days, to move funds across. What we do allow for customers of ours is just mere clicks of buttons. They can move funds from one exchange to another. All we're doing is sending them digital balances or information to the exchanges saying that this client have moved funds or allocated funds to that exchange. Traders can go to that exchange, trade based on that digital balance, and then settle everything inside copper. So it's a much more capital efficient way to trade crypto. And again, mitigating counterparty risk, which resolves a situation like OKX, several months ago when they crashed. People didn't know where the trades went, so no problem with that. All your principal capital sits inside copper, nothing goes away. So that's kind of what we do in a nutshell. And on top of that, we provide prime brokerage service. So we provide margin lending, OTC liquidity. We have staking services. We have a MetaMask-like product where you can connect to DeFi platforms, but the funds don't sit in hot wallet environments. The funds move from custody onto the DeFi platforms, and once you're done, the funds go back into custody. So it's never exposed to any hackers. It's always in cold custody. So I think what we created was something really different from what the other crypto custodians offer. And recently, we just raised our Series B, raised $50 million, and then most recently, we've also raised $25 million from a very, very prominent UK-based hedge fund, Brevin Howard. The one of the owners, co-founders of that fund, called Alan Howard, has invested $25 million into our company. So we're ready to expand. We're expanding in Asia, obviously in the UK, which is our headquarters. We're beefing up our tech team and also US as well. So we're ready to go and kill the market.
Wow, and that's quite a lot to absorb. I think even for someone like me, right? I'm trying to follow, like in terms of the number of services that you provide for all your clientele base, and of course, I think in a nutshell, maybe just to summarize what you do, basically, Corporate.co provide prime crypto brokerage service, right? That's the core business for your organization, and of course, you wear so many different hats as well. You're also the founder of Blockchain Center Singapore, and you have your own podcast, which is a Future Design Podcast, which is something I want to go maybe deep dive into some of your recent episodes later on. Where do you find the time to actually wear so many hats? Are you Superman?
I like to ask that myself. I mean, most of the podcast recording I do in the off times of working hours, and then I do all the post production myself on the weekends. So obviously, it's a lot of work. I wish I could spend more time with my kids rather than, hold up in my office here and, doing all the editing and all that, mumbo jumbo. But yeah, but this is my passion, it's my hobby, but I take it, pretty seriously as well. I think right now we're in the kind of, the epicenter where all these technologies are like exploding. We have so many things that we're capable of doing, but at the same time, you also have to wonder, like, are we actually building these things for the right reason? We could go in deep into that, but I'll just follow your lead.
Yeah, I think one of the things, the cool ideas that you basically planted in my head when I listened to some of your recent episodes, right? It's basically all these cool ideas or new narratives around Bitcoin and crypto, which are so super exciting, right? And this space is moving at such a rapid rate. Sometimes I'm just wondering if I don't do podcasts and have all these great, fantastic guests like you coming on the show to educate me and my audience, right? How do we actually make sense of all this information that is basically flooding our news feed? And of course, there are so many podcast shows. I think you're one of the great podcast shows who basically break it down for us so succinctly well and so clearly as well. Maybe starting off with the first time when you heard of Bitcoin and NFTs, yeah, since this is also an NFT theme program and festival. Tell us, was it because of your first maybe observation when you were working in Hong Kong, where you observed that domestic workers were using, all these platforms like Western Union, and you observe so many people are underbanked and having, to go through the hassle of setting up bank accounts? Were these, the first instances where you realized that, Bitcoin and, cryptocurrency could actually change these experiences for everybody who are struggling with all this funds transfer and getting funds, from one place to the other? Like even like this day and age, right? I'm still facing that issue where, I get some of my funds through this service called Payoneer, right? For example. And when a card expires, I have to order a new card, and that means I have no access to my funds. And it's such a pain, just trying to wait for this new card to be DHL over to my place so that I have access to my funds again. These are the things that Bitcoin and blockchain are able to solve, right? Was this the first instance when you realized that this could be a game changer?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I would go into that a little bit further down in my storyline. So the moment I encountered Bitcoin, well, this is a little bit of an anecdote, but obviously I heard about Bitcoin through like the failure of Mount Gox. And when I was living in Hong Kong, there were, exchanges being built out. There was even a Bitcoin ATM in the city where I used to walk by, and I was thinking, oh, what is that Bitcoin thing? And when I really started looking into it, was not really because of the domestic workers and stuff that we were talking about, but it was, I used to invest, I still do invest in my own personal wealth into various securities and gold and etc. So I used to put 10% of my wealth into gold, but I moved quite a lot during my professional lifetime. I was in Japan. I moved out to London, then to Singapore, to Hong Kong, to Singapore again. So actually moving physical gold is pretty hard, as you can imagine. And obviously there's taxes and etc. involved in it. So I was thinking, isn't there a better way to move around gold than just buying ETF? Because obviously ETF is just paper, right? It's not really real. It's just tracking the economic value of gold. So I was thinking, isn't there something better than that? And that's how I kind of got into the rabbit hole of looking at cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin in particular. So I did remember my friend working in a crypto exchange and he was telling me all about it. I remember the Bitcoin ATMs around, and so I'll give it a shot. Let me just kind of read through this and discover what I can find. And what I've understood was that it has even a better mechanism or the better theory than gold. Gold, they say it's finite, but we don't know how much there still is. I mean, obviously there's calculations around it, but they could be potentially more. Who knows? In a sense that Bitcoin, there's only 20 million that could be created. That's definitely deflationary. So as you mint all these Bitcoins, obviously there's going to be a volatility time until you get to that 21 million. But once it hits there, there's no more. So obviously, the more demand, obviously the price is going to go up. So I thought this is so much better than gold. I could carry it around in my USB stick, whatever it is, and I could completely replace my gold. So I started investing more into crypto, in Bitcoin. So maybe like let's say half and a half of that. But it's not just about it. The more I read into it, and I obviously read through the white papers and etc. And there was this kind of time when I thought, well, this is something that you don't even need to use the banking system. Obviously, for fiat, you have to use the banking system to load your exchanges to buy crypto. But once it's out there, you have your crypto. You don't need banking services. So I thought, what are other ways that people can use this cryptocurrency other than just storing wealth? And I found, as you mentioned, I was living in Hong Kong, and I saw all these domestic helpers sending money across using these money exchanges. And I look at the commissions on there, and it says 10%, 15%. I thought it was just incredible. I mean, and here I am. I was at that point, complaining about the bank charges me 1% to do international transfers, and they're paying 10%, and basically that's like nearly like a close to a week's worth of their annual monthly pay. And I was feeling really bad for that. But then I thought, these people can actually use Bitcoin to move funds around, as long as on the other side there's a way to convert that into fiat. But you could do that instantly. You don't have to wait hours or days in order to do it. And obviously this is before everybody started investing in Bitcoin. Now it takes a couple of days or hours to send across and get that network validation. So that's one point. And then another point that really hit me really hard is that my wife is from Uruguay, and I heard about her stories saying that a lot of these Argentinian people are bringing bags fulls of US dollars across borders in order to save their wealth, because if they put it into their bank in Argentina, the government's going to eventually confiscate it. Obviously, because of hyperinflation, they have to protect the Argentinian pesos. So they're going to buy Argentinian pesos by selling US dollars. So they just take the bank's US dollars, sell it into the market. So they couldn't trust the banks. So they had to cross borders to go to Uruguay and deposit those US dollars. And that's not a way for people to live, right? They can't trust the banks. They can't trust the basic financial infrastructure that they have. If you actually can convert that into Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency, they can that's away from the banking system. They don't have to worry about hyperinflation. They could migrate to different countries, having Bitcoin in their USB stick, and then going to the crypto exchange in Canada or US or wherever they're going, and convert that into the local currency. So that's when I thought, like, there's so many countries like that, like Turkey, Zimbabwe, Venezuela. I mean, all these people in those countries can benefit from this. So it's not just about my personal wealth or like gold, digital gold or whatever. This is like something that is really necessary, because the banking system is failing a lot of people. Monetary policies are failing a lot of people, and this is their only way out. And that was the Eureka moment for me. Is like, this is going to stay forever.
I'm getting goosebumps when I hear these eureka moments that you have experienced personally. I think there's so many things that we would say that that we hate about this banking system, the fiat system, and everything else, right? But just like your wife from Uruguay, I think she must be super thrilled, right? When first these nations, right, they ignore Bitcoin, but suddenly countries like El Salvador recently they just announced that. They pass a law where they make it a legal tender, right? They're embracing Bitcoin in a huge way. Do you think that you share maybe similar sentiments as the citizens of El Salvador? And do you think that your wife will be also super thrilled by the fact that like countries like maybe Paraguay, Argentina, Panama, Brazil, Nicaragua, they're gonna maybe also embrace Bitcoin in the future and follow the footsteps of El Salvador?
That's a good question. Obviously, there's a lot of countries that actually use the US dollars, like Panama, for example, as their base currency. Like Zimbabwe uses a basket of different sovereign currencies because their monetary policy is much fragile than the other, wealthy nations in the world. But when these wealthy nations also screw up their monetary policies, or when these finance ministers of these, developing countries nation find out that they have no control over the issuance of currencies, they get a little bit scared. Obviously, now there's all this inflationary pressure on the U.S. dollars and other currencies around the world, developed countries of the world, and they're completely subject to that. When El Salvador incorporated U.S. dollars to be their national legal tender, that was in 2001, 2002, if I remember correctly. It's a completely different world back then. So right now we're in this era where all the developing nations are printing money like no tomorrow, and in these countries where they're always subject to hyperinflation, they don't want to import that into their country. So it makes sense that they want to try out something different in order to prevent that from happening. Now, is Bitcoin the best transactional cryptocurrency there is? I kind of doubt it, to be honest. I mean, obviously, it's much clunkier than other cryptocurrencies. It takes much longer to transact and etc. And I'm sure, I know that the El Salvadorian governments are putting measures into place that the merchants can convert those uh, bitcoins into US dollars very quickly. And there's like night lightning networks that it's off chain that you can transact much faster. But I'm not really sure if it's really retail use friendly. I mean, obviously I think there are a lot more cryptocurrencies now that are fit for that, but it is a very bold move, and it makes it is a very strong statement to the U.S. Governments, to the wealthy nations in the world, that I don't trust your monetary policies either. And I think that is going to have a ripple effect across developing nations. I wouldn't say all of them. I won't say now, but I'm sure there's a huge concern across all those nations.
I think you made a really good point about these inflationary, concerns, right? And I remember that Edward Snowden, when uh, Joe Biden, right, U.S. president, announced that they would spend 6 trillion on money that they don't have on sprucing up the U.S. economy, and Edward Snowden is the first to tweet $6 trillion. That is good for Bitcoin. So I think many who are in this space, they share the same sentiments that how everyone in the world right now, if we think that inflation is bad, wait until Biden actually spends that $6 trillion that they really don't have. And in terms of like reimagining the economy by printing and overworking the money printing machines, that's definitely not a way forward, right? So I know that your podcast, spotlights a lot about new ideas and narratives on how to reimagine the economy, and even touch on other topics that are fantastic, especially for someone like me who's always searching for happiness, finding ways to live more happily, and of course living a more fruitful and creative life, right? So this is probably a good time to maybe segue into the NFT or the creator economy as well. Do you think that reimagining the economy is not about printing more money, but it's more about actually empowering everyone who is basically a creator? Someone like you, you're also a creator, even though you work for all these great companies, but you're also creating content on a weekly basis and putting aside time for you to grow your podcast and building your own community, right? You think this is a better way to reimagine the economy than just relying on handouts from the government, or just preparing for the day when they print the next 6 trillion US dollars that they actually don't really possess?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Wayne. So I think there's multiple answers to your question. So do governments need to continue printing money like they were before? And I think this tool right now doesn't really work anymore. Basically, the structure of the economy completely changed. Obviously, globalization, cheap labor, importing it from overseas, and driving down the cost. It's not just about cheap labor, but automation as well. So I think that if you look across a lot of the companies, let's say in the US or developing nations, and look at their capex is actually shrinking. And and that's where all the money that they usually, traditionally borrow from banks used to go to. They use it for acquiring different companies, building factories, building, automation, IT, in capex, all these things that they used to do. That that investment is shrinking because there's not. I wouldn't say there's not much else to do, but you just don't need that much capital anymore. So even if they print out, 4 billion, $1 trillion, etc., that money is not going to go. So what do they use? So they get all these free money, basically free money from the governments, and what are they using it for? They're actually buying back their own stocks, right?
Mm.
They're not distributing it to their employees, right? They're sharing it with their shareholders. It's not really, you know creating more businesses for themselves. It's not about that. They have no place to put it. So all they're doing is giving back to shareholders. And this is the problem that we face today, is that all the money that government prints all goes back into the wealthy shareholders. There's no trickle down effect anymore. And because of this, there's going to be less jobs because of automation and robotics and all these things. And corporations, they don't think about the welfare of their people generally, right? They face the shareholders. They have to drive down the costs. And if they can replace people with automation, that is their sole mission to do, right? I mean, that's what they do. They drive down costs enough so that a lot of revenue flows down to the bottom. So in this kind of new world where we are living amongst AI and automation and all these things, our jobs, the menial jobs, even the white collar jobs, is going to be automated away. So what are we going to do as human beings in this kind of automated world? Obviously, we've seen a huge explosion of individual, businesses that are doing podcasts. They're becoming chefs. They're becoming the personal trainers. I mean, there's so much abundance of these kind of individual based working opportunities now, and I think this is a byproduct of all these jobs being automated away, giving the space for everybody to try to recreate income for themselves by using their own talents and skills to make a living. And I think that's going to continue to grow. That pie is going to continue to grow. And how do you make the lives of all these people that we have on this planet that are going to be automated away from their jobs is something that we really need to focus on. And it's not going to be UBS, in my view. I mean, I think that is taking away people's dignity because they're going to rely more on governments for their handouts. And if the government says, I'm just going to, you know, uh, turn off the faucet here, they're completely subject to that. So do you want to be like that? Because you're going to be in the mercy of the government. So you have to be more independent, be able to create a job for yourself, which is a lot harder than just waking up at 6 o'clock, getting on a train, and then going to your kind of soul sucking, corporate job. But it was much easier. So we now have to, kind of are facing this fact that we have to live by our own means. And if that is going to create a world where we have to build revenue models, business models based on individual efforts in a concerted way. And that's the business model that I think new business models need to be created in order to support that. So these marketplaces for like NFTs and etc. I mean, obviously before NFTs, all these things existed, but I think the creativity behind the NFT movement, even though it might not look so much different from the past, gives a lot of rise to different ideas. And like for gaming, etc., you can create your own tokens as you as a celebrity of your podcast, and you can send your tokens out to all your listeners and create this community, create a metaverse with token economy based on those tokens. I mean, you could do a lot of things, and all this creativity is exploding right now, which is so interesting to be in this time right now. Because I guess even during this COVID times, I think a lot of us kind of stayed at home and thought about all these ways that we could make money, because obviously we were all afraid to get our jobs slashed away. So I take the example back in the 1920s when you had the Spanish flu, or sorry, previous to that, the 1910s when you had the Spanish flu, the Roaring 20s. It was exactly that. They came out of their houses and all this creativity exploded. You had Picasso, you had Hemingway, all these like really interesting stuff, jazz, all these things were created during these times, right? Radios were created. I mean, there was an explosion of creativity happening after that Spanish flu, which is really happening at today, whether it's DeFi, NFTs, you name it. All these things that are coming out is going to create a new economy for the coming future.
And there's so many things that you have just said, which is also like very goosebumps raising moments for me as well, because I think you nailed it on the head when it comes to this new economy, right? This creator economy, even this new wave of entrepreneurs that's going to come out of this pandemic. And I think it's actually quite appropriate to call it, this is going to be our Renaissance era, which you mentioned earlier about the 1920s when all this great jazz music, all this great art were created. And we are seeing so many creators now moving into this economy as well. I think where we are able to, just be creative, not just in terms of like making art, right? Or NFT art. For those who are in the software space, they can code. And this is also another way where they can be really creative and be really productive as well. So it's no longer, just relying on the old way of doing things and not really, putting into good use, all these data centers at our disposal, for example, or, where we have so many resources where we can learn how to code, or we can write books, right? Where we are inspired by other authors who wrote great books that inspire us to write our own blogs or even publish our own books as well. And many people who are not very good at writing, for example, like me, then I would choose to record videos and do podcasts, which is what both of us are already doing, basically quite extensively already for many years. So, and we are also looking at, all these big tech firms now paying attention and creating new, solutions where creators are able to monetize their work, right? Apple, I think they took the lead, which is very good, even though they're taking a 30% cut for the first year for podcasters who actually, run their subscription plans and get their listeners to pay them, for the great podcast episodes that they're putting out. And then Spotify is following that with, I think, a lower cut or zero. I think Facebook as well is also contributing to this creator economy by getting people to also publish their work and not taking a cut at all. I think these are all good signs. And every day, there's always a new platform where people are able to put out their work and being able to monetize it either from their own listeners or from their sponsors as well. And this NFT space, of course, is something that we want to talk about. I think that the first time, when we heard about ICOs, we think that was always a bad idea, right? There's so many things that we hate about ICOs. Do you think this is going to happen for the NFT space as well? Once this hype is over, especially, we have this outlier occurrence where people sold his NFT art for 9 million, right? It's not going to happen again. And once this, craziness or this hype is over, do you think that we'll see the same fate that's going to happen to NFT artists? The way that startups, they really suffered during the ICO craze as well, where everyone was just basically jumping on a bandwagon and creating ICOs like no tomorrow, right? I think that seems to be happening in the NFT space right now, where everyone is also rushing out to create their own token or having their own NFT project. So tell me about your sentiments and your feelings around this. Do you think the ICO phase is going to happen in the NFT space as well?
No, I guess it really happened, right? And what we saw back in the 2016 and 17 with these ICOs, after they died down, they changed into IEOs and they changed into IDOs. So I think there will always be a modification of how this is being done, and I think that will be the same with NFTs. I personally think that initially the ICOs, a lot of them were very irresponsive, but over the 3 years, I think a lot of people got much smarter and they knew which projects that were actually legitimate. They did their own due diligence, and made sure that what they were investing in was proper. And I don't think I'm sure there are irresponsible ones still out there, but I think majority of them have become much cleaner in that sense. And I think that in an NFT space as well, that multiple phase of getting much better at raising funds, making better content, reaching out to people, I think that phase will happen as well.
You mentioned about ICO and then which later on became IEO and different acronyms that just popped up, right? I remember I really hated ICO a lot when it was the rage, right? A few years ago, In fact, I even worked for one ICO exchange, which is based in China, but I really hated the idea because it sounds so scammy. And because I hated it so much, I ran 0 campaigns for them, even though I was, a CMO for this startup in China. And but the cool thing out of that movement, or should we say that cycle, right, was that I was paid in Bitcoin in salary at that time. So, I was able to experience withdrawing salary from a Bitcoin machine. I learned how to transfer all or even sell Bitcoin on Coinbase. So that actually got me started, in this space and pay attention to it. And now the NFT is going to do the same thing, right? People are actually, interacting or learning how to set up their wallets, connecting their wallets to all these NFT marketplaces. When they buy or when they trade in a secondary market, they're learning how to use cryptocurrency. Do you think this will bring about a new wave of adopters who are actually learning about cryptocurrency for the first time because of this NFT craze?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, there's many ways that people can learn about blockchain and cryptocurrency and getting interested in getting into it. And in a way that that this asset class is becoming so popular is also on the backdrop of the economic situation that we're in right now. Obviously, we're all in zero interest rate policies across most of the developed nations, and there's no way to make money. Fixed income, as we know it today, is dead, right? And nobody's investing in fixed income. Well, I wouldn't say nobody, but there's not much lucrative opportunities there. And equities, used to be a reflection of the economic activity of the companies, but valuations just went through the roof. There's no connection to the fundamental value of the equity share prices versus the performance of the company. So in a way, everything has become blown up because of all this influx of money that's coming in. So cryptocurrency, in a way, even though it's not reflective of any economic activity in the back end, but it gives people an opportunity to make investment opportunities. And I don't think put all your money into crypto is the greatest idea. Obviously, I am a traditional finance guy by practice. I learned all the fundamental analysis of doing looking at companies and balance sheets and cash flows and etc. So maybe I'm a little bit old school in that sense, but also I feel this kind of sense of nihilism in this market where people don't really care anymore. I think they've kind of given up on the fact that the governments are not going to be uh, providing for us. They're not going to be able to control this monetary mess that we're in, and they just say, you know what, I'm just going to gamify this thing, just like the stock, the GameStop things and all these crypto stuff as well. So I'm even though my profession is in crypto trading, etc., and I do support a lot of hedge funds and you know crypto payment companies and neobanks coming into the space, I love all that. But actually, I rather do want to see a world where it's kind of a little bit back to normal, where equity prices are reflective of economic activities. There's some interest rate on in fixed income products, and crypto is another asset class that people can trade in. But we're not really living in a normalized world, and I don't want the rest of the world to feel nihilistic about it and say, you know what, nobody's gonna fix this thing. I mean, this is the horrible reality that we live in, and they just make it into a game because obviously there's nothing else we can actually make money on because our jobs are going to be automated away. And if I don't trade in crypto or something like this that has massive volatility, there's no way for me to make money. In a way, it's a little bit of a sad situation that we're in, right?
100%. I feel that sentiments as well. I think it's definitely a growing sentiment that many they can just Google for these information and what works and what doesn't work, right? And actually judge for themselves, why this distrust of so many of all these governments that are actually, instead of helping the economy, they are kind of like ruining it. And I think it's Satoshi, basically, when he laid down his vision, his white paper, right? There's so many core principles like decentralization, and all these great principles that basically provide the blueprint, right? And so many ways for us to actually get out of this, dire situation that we find ourselves in, especially the pandemic making the situation worse everywhere else, right? So, in terms of like central banks that are also joining this digital currency race, what is your opinion in terms of like all these CBDs, right, being rolled out by China and USA, Indonesia right now. Do you think that this is the right move?
Well, it depends on how you use it. So technology is always colorless. It depends on the people who are using it. So it can be used for better tracking of transactional data so that it can be reconciled later on. And obviously, double spend was a huge issue until Bitcoin came about. But it could fall into, if it goes into the wrong hands, it could be tracking everybody's financial transactions, making sure that everybody's follows in line. And if something happens, then they could retract that cryptocurrency from their wallet. I think, the concept is fine. It's just really a matter of the human values aspect to it.
You mentioned earlier about DeFi. So how do DeFi really go mainstream? And because the benefit, for the NFT artists who are tuning in to this particular live stream and listening to this replay later on, right? How do DeFi actually affects them as well? Is this something that they should be bothered with?
Well, I think DeFi and NFTs are quite different, but it's an interesting gateway into learning about DeFi. I think DeFi is currently unregulated, and will probably, well, hopefully continue to be unregulated. And this is a way for a lot of people to make money. So let's take a very, very simple example. And this is what I even talk to institutional investors about. They always come to me and say, what can I create as a cryptocurrency product so that I can sell to retail clients or, the broader investment, investors out there. And I take this very simple example. You can use, let's say you use DeFi. So let's say you just tell them, invest in US dollars into your fund. You convert that into US dollar stable coins, and you could use the DeFi platforms like Compound or Aave or Earn or whatever they are, and you could lend that out into the market, and you get a return from it, which is much higher than you get from your fiat currencies. So that is a super simple product, but it makes sense. Nobody's taking US dollar risk. Sorry, and well, they're not taking currency risk, right? All they're taking is the counterparty risk that they're lending those tokens out to. But in DeFi world, it's 150% collateralized, which means that if I lend out 100 to somebody, the counterparty has to put in collateral $150 so that if they trade those $100 and they start to lose that money, then I can claim that collateral in return from the lost investment that I provided. So I think it's a much safer way to play than going to a centralized platform where you lend out your tokens. It could be for no collateral. It could be 150 collateral. I mean, it really depends. And I know it's very manual, but with these smart contracts, everything is very transparent. You know exactly what you're getting for what you're lending out. So if you use these platforms and just buy or invest in these crypto products that are just on US dollar basis, you're not taking a huge amount of risk. So it's a very easy way to get into DeFi. And then that will open up a massive channel of other DeFi products that are out there, which I won't get into. But you'll see that there's so many ways to invest in DeFi that you'll never see in the traditional finance world. And I think that is kind of the way of the future in some sense, because a lot of these people are thinking about, in this world of zero interest rates and crazy, equity valuations in the world, what's a safer way for people to make money, or what's a more transparent way for people to make money so that surely they can, get some returns on their investments. So in a way, rather than dabbling in equity shares or investing directly into the crypto markets and taking position risks on your Bitcoins or Ethereums or whatever they are, just simply go in there, buy your stable coins and just lend it out for yield. Simple as that. You potentially earn like 15% on it on an annualized basis. So it's much safer way than buying S&P index stocks.
This is fantastic. I think if we retailer your answer for the NFT artists or the creators out there who are tuning in, right? Basically, they should be bothered with DeFi because in a way, basically, if they are going to start projects or NFT projects, they have access to easy loans, right? In order to start these NFT projects, despite their background, despite their gender, their race, and their class, This is all good, yeah, and it's definitely gonna be something that which is not just a concept on paper, but it has been proven that it's workable. And of course, there are risks involved, as with anything in life. But it's definitely something that maybe NFT artists should also be bothered and maybe read up more about DeFi. Yeah.
For sure. And I need to add in that, in traditional banks, you'll have to send in AML KYC documents. They'll look at your, social background, your profession, maybe they look at your race, gender, whatever they are. DeFi doesn't look at any of that. They have no cares whatsoever what your background is. It's just the software running with no prejudice, no bias, nothing. All you need is your stable coins and you just lend it out and you get your interest rate, which is a huge difference from your traditional finance.
Let's sidetrack a bit and talk about your podcast. I know that your podcast is about Web3, about crypto, about the technologies, about the metaverse, about spiritual, even the psychedelics as well. Why did you decide on all these topics for your podcast?
Yeah. So as I was saying, we are entering in a world where technology is going to be abundant and we're facing this cross point in our lifetime, and it's a hugely exciting time for us as well, is that once we have all these technologies in hand, what are we going to do with it? If you think about, let's say, Facebook, initially it was just a college site for guys to hook up with girls or check out girls, and it morphed into this huge gigantic company that's selling your data and selling you ads, and it could be used for propaganda, it could be used for fake news, or it could just be simply keeping in touch with your loved ones across borders. But the way that people use these platforms is really dependent on the people who are using it. The technology itself, as I said, is colorless, tasteless. What we do to it makes a huge difference. So I think that with this, AI and quantum computing or whatever they are that's coming out, we should be very careful how we treat technology. And when business leaders or technologists are building these things, we need to figure out in many different ways that these things can go wrong to make sure that it doesn't fall into the wrong hands, it doesn't go in the wrong direction. Because 20 years ago, I'm not sure if anybody really thought about that, but now we've seen the past 20 years what technology can do to our society. We've very racially divided, socially divided, politically divided. That is not the world that we want to see. And this whole, as I added on, as nihilism towards the political scene, the medical, the monetary situation that we're in, we don't want to have that going forward. And I think we need to make sure that we're actually building something that's creating a better world. And that's what I really want to talk about. And also on the layer on top is that when I was talking about all these jobs being automated, a lot of things are going to come into our life as we need to kind of start looking at our human values. We're going to be creators, we're going to be coders, we're going to be, you know, salespeople. Everything is going to be more about focusing on how to reach out to people rather than logic and all the scientific things that we've been accustomed to in the traditional education. We need to focus more on being more creative, being more artistic, being more, um, you know, the, I don't know, it could be many things, right? So when we go into that, I hope that we can start to also look into ourselves and then see ourselves of who we are and how we relate to the world around us, the universe around us. Now, I'm not a very religious person, but I could say I'm a very spiritual person. I do believe that, we are here not for a purpose, but to enjoy the journey that we are living in this vessel that we call our bodies. And, maybe we'll move into a different dimension. Maybe we'll reincarnate. I don't know about that. But all I know is that all these animals that were living here, sentient beings, including ourselves, we have to be one with each other. And I hope that as we start looking into ourselves to become creators, become artists, etc., we can also look into our spiritual side of things. And I think that's the moment that we can actually start to reduce these divides, because ultimately we're all just but one.
Very well said, my friend. I think, this is the reason why I love your podcast, because you're always bringing on guests, and they bring their A game as well. And you always ask the right questions whenever they are on your show. And you break it down for us, Web3. You talk about topics like the spirituality. You talk about social class, even like educate someone who is not from that, from that industry in the finance world, and to really understand what DeFi is. I remember when I listened to your episode where you break down DeFi for us, right? Where you mentioned about how a social class results in loans being rejected due to all these, policies that nobody knows for sure why. And like even like, all these terms that doesn't make sense, like what is a Swift code? These are the things that resonate really, with me a lot when I'm listening to that particular episode. And when you break down DeFi for us, I'm also thinking like what you just said, a creative person like Kurt Cobain, the frontman of Nirvana, if he's still alive today or if he's just starting out in 2021, he will be thriving in this creator economy, because he would definitely, be able to find, maybe 100 fans, from his maybe 1,000 mega fans community online, especially if he's like gonna be practicing, his songs for Smells Like Teen Spirit 5 years ahead, and he'll be, Twitch streaming, for 7 years straight before he puts out Teen Spirit, and he's able to easily, find funds, easily able to monetize from his small but mega fans audience. You don't really need millions. All you need is just 1,000, right? 1,000 people is all you need to actually make a decent, if not even better living, from just doing what he loves, which is music. So this is definitely an exciting world, and I'm really, appreciating you, for actually bringing all this good stuff on your show. And it's been great, having this conversation with you. We overrun a little bit, but because bringing so much value bombs into this show, so I keep on, throwing more questions at you before you go. I always love to do what we call this lightning quick, or I'm going to fire off a lot of questions to you during this speed round segment. So the rules are pretty simple. You must give really short and pithy response. So one sentence or two maximum. So are you ready, my friend?
Sure.
Let's go. What are your proudest life moments?
That's so hard. Let's say. Well, recently my son came to me and he showed me his podcast playlist for the first time, and I always the answer is going to be long, but anyway. So I always waited for the moment my son is going to show me his favorite music list, like a mixtape or something, and that was like the moment when he asked me, "This is my Spotify playlist. Do you like it or not?" Yeah, that was really proud. I was really proud.
Let me guess, the playlist has lots of hip hop and rap. Is that right?
It did, and also had some heavy metal in there as well.
Fantastic. Now I know your song choice for your introduction music for your podcast. What do you want doing less of for the rest of 2021?
Less staying at home, and I want to go meet some more people.
What do you want doing more of in 2021?
Meeting more people.
Your advice for NFT artists who are tuning in.
So hard. There's a broader world of crypto and blockchain out there, so I suggest you learn more about those things.
That's the reason why we're bringing you on to this podcast, so they could educate all of us. Any future ambitions or side projects?
I still want to grow my podcast. I think that'll be my side project for the foreseeable future.
How can people reach you?
So you can reach me on LinkedIn. It's my full name, Takatoshi Shibayama. You probably see it on the bottom there. And I think that's a great place for us to start chatting.
Fantastic. You also have a great Substack newsletter. So I think people should go. What's the URL?
Yeah. So I have a website called fdpod.co, fdpod.co. There you can subscribe to my newsletter, and you could reach out to me through there as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Time just flew past whenever, we have coffee together or we're talking about our favorite topics, right? So I would love to re-invite you back on, maybe do another follow-up third episode. If it is like the second time you come on to one of our PodFest Asia events. So hopefully the next time we're going to do will be in the metaverse, and we'll be wearing our VR gear and maybe interact with each other in a virtual world. Maybe do a live session in Mars, for example, and really do a very immersive podcast next time. So I'm looking forward to that. So any last words or message for our listeners who are replaying this on their AirPods or smart speakers later on?
Yeah. Again, don't just take technology for what it is. Think about what you're doing it for, and always have an ethical value in there. You're trying to create a better future. That I think that's something that you really need to think about. And don't think about money. Success is not about money. It's about living with us, all of us sharing that success with everybody. Success is not just about yourself.
Very well said, my friend. This has been a really educational time and session, with you. So I look forward to have you back on in the future. So have a great night, and thanks for staying up late just for this live taping of the podcast. I'll see you very soon in real life, my friend, over a coffee session at PLQ again.
For sure, man.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye. That's Taka, and you can check out his podcast. It's available wherever you listen to podcasts. It's called Future Design Podcast. So before we introduce our next guest, her name is Lavina Osbourne. I'm super excited because I've never, interacted with her before, virtually. This is going to be the first time. So we definitely have many things we want to maybe remix later on. Maybe I'll ask her some of the same questions that I asked Taka earlier on. But before that, this is a short public service announcement. So this is how it goes. By the way, my name is Wayne. For those who are unfamiliar with my PodFest Asia podcast and our festivals, I just want to take a second to thank you for watching this live podcast taping or listening to this podcast replay later on. I want to give a special thank you to all the supporters that we have on Patreon since 2020 and those who are now joining us on Substack. So our Patreon and Substack accounts make this podcast possible. It makes all these interviews and all of the thoughts that you hear right here, it makes it possible. So we're very grateful to everyone who supports the creator economy and the myriad of new shows that we recently launched in May and also in June. So if you would like to support, you can go to podfestasia.substack.com. That's podfestasia.substack.com. You can become a supporter, get access to some cool bonus episodes that we release every month for supporters only. And you could even get access to our free NFTs of the month club. We send out really, really cool digital collectibles every single month, and it keeps my mouth talking. It keeps my head giving and taking, and also keeps all these things going. So if you like the podcast, if you like to support the podcast, we really appreciate it. And that's the message before we bring on our next guest. So my next guest, Lavina Osbourne. I think I have a bio of hers, right here in my email. So I'm going to just bring it up. And later on, before we bring her on, right, I think it's more appropriate to give Lavina a proper introduction. So I just want to make sure that I bring up her writer bio and read it out to our listeners and those who are watching this live stream. At this moment, she's the founder and host of Women in Blockchain Talks. And Lavina basically, is someone that I got to connect with on LinkedIn. And she's one of many people, great people on LinkedIn who are producing great content and also educating, audiences, all the great things about blockchain and about the community that she's building. She's an award-winning host and founder of Women in Blockchain Talks, which is an award-winning networking and educational platform that shines a spotlight on dynamic women in the blockchain ecosystem. In doing so, she aims to introduce non-technical as well as technically skilled women into this exciting and burgeoning space of emerging technology. With a background in financial wellness, she brings with her a desire to uplift individuals financially, professionally, and personally, and giving those in her community a new way of thinking about their money, career, and life opportunities. So Women in Blockchain Talks as a social impact company, and there are 50,000 women into blockchain by 2023 campaign is a vehicle to drive change. Lavina is on a mission to decrease the gender gap in blockchain technology, and entrepreneurship. So without further ado, let's bring her on to our virtual podcast stage. How are you, my friend? Sorry to keep you waiting.
That's okay. That's fine. It was a great interview you just did with Taki. So it's nice to, be introduced or to be open to seeing someone that is not part of my normal community and hear something new. So thank you so much, Wayne.
And thank you for agreeing to do this and come on to this festival. And of course, we always like to start by asking our favorite question. Tell us about your story, how you got started, and how did Women in Blockchain came about. So we'd love to hear, from you exactly how you got started and how the journey has been so far for you.
Okay, so how I got started is my background is in financial well-being, financial wellness. And if you're talking to people about their money and their stories and their, pros and cons, their ups and downs, you're going to be talking about the past. You're going to be talking about the present. You're going to be talking about the future. And if you're talking about the future of money, then hello, we're going to be talking about decentralized digital money, right? Cryptocurrencies, crypto assets. So that's how I got into the blockchain space. And I just thought it was very intriguing. So before I learned about blockchain, I knew about Bitcoin. But at the time when I started learning about it, you would need to be in the tech field or know someone who could introduce you on how to purchase Bitcoin, because there was nothing out there as it is now. It's 10 times easier now to get into this space. And one of the reasons why I advocate for people to come into this space from the wealth creation aspect is the barrier to entry is so low. When you think about stocks and shares, generally speaking, you have to have a huge amount of money, or you have to be earning a certain amount of money to have access to wealth education, wealth advice, wealth creation opportunities, right? So the barrier to entry is very high in the non-crypto blockchain world. So this is the reason why I say to people, don't close your mind off to this simply because it's tech and you don't understand it or you don't understand the terminologies. We are evolving beings who have the capability of learning new things every single day. It's just a question of whether we want to learn or not. So, yeah. So that's how I got introduced to the world of Bitcoin. And then I started learning about blockchain, the technology that underpins Bitcoin. And a lot of people will ask, well, what's the difference? And the best analogy that I have, I would say, think of the internet and email. You can't send an email without the internet. You can't send a cryptocurrency transaction or a blockchain transaction without blockchain technology. So if you think of it that way, it kind of simplifies it just a little bit of the difference between Bitcoin and blockchain, email, internet. And so I created Women in Blockchain talks. I kind of fell into it, if I'm honest with you, but I think it was obviously or evidently it was my destiny, or I wouldn't be here now talking about it. And I've got eyes, and I noticed there was a lack of women in the space. And so after I worked for a small blockchain company, and their focus was on digital identity, because digital identity is a huge topic within the blockchain ecosystem. And I wanted to do something, but I didn't feel like I had the ability, or like, who do I think I am? Because I wasn't technical, I wasn't a developer or a coder. But someone very kind who is a developer and a coder, they said, Lavina, we need people like you at the front end. We need people with your skill sets. And I was like, okay, well, if you're saying that to me, I'm going to believe you. So she gave me the belief to believe in myself. And here I am 20 months later, with not just an event anymore, but an ecosystem. And so the journey has just been fantastic. Of course, COVID wasn't easy, but I pivoted from an offline event to online. So I became more virtual, and I'm very comfortable being online and speaking, et cetera, and using the technology that's required to be able to be online and, share my voice and the voices of the many women and the many, interesting and innovative professionals, characters in this space. And so for me, the journey has been wonderful, and I'm still enjoying the journey. There's so much to do, and I'm just excited to be here. I'm excited to be able to be a woman in blockchain in this time.
Let's get you to talk about women in blockchain's impact on the ecosystem. And maybe can you talk about some of the challenges, the setbacks, or maybe even controversies, if there are any, that have arisen, in the past 20 months, ever since you started this from nothing?
Well, I mean, if we want to talk about impact, the impact is really about gender diversity and inclusivity. We live in a world where people look like me and you, across the range, but sometimes we see in the corporate world that there's only one certain image, Caucasian, male, middle age, and there's nothing wrong with being Caucasian, middle-aged, or, from the Western world. There's nothing wrong with that. We embrace everyone, but that world also needs to embrace everyone. It's a given, a give and take. And what women in particular love about blockchain is the social impact aspect of it. It is about what difference can we make. It is about disruption, taking what was and using blockchain to not only increase efficiencies in regards to, let's just go back to blockchain, right? Blockchain is about, and we're talking about public blockchains because there's many types of blockchains. There's hybrids, there's public, there's private. So we're talking about blockchain, a public blockchain. So we're thinking Bitcoin, we're thinking Ethereum, and those sort of things. And what they're doing is they're helping to decrease so take away the middleman, so it decreases costs and increases efficiencies. And in increasing those efficiencies, it allows financial inclusion because, when you think about blockchain, yes, it very much sits within the two worlds of technology and finances, right? And both of those arenas, both of those areas, those industries are very white, middle-aged male dominant, and they still are. But blockchain, it feels like it's a space for anyone to come into. It comes back again to the barriers to entry. With blockchain, it's like, we don't care what you look like. It's similar to what Taki was saying. It's colorless. It's tasteless. It's about come with who you are and what you've got. If you're willing to learn, if you're willing to get down and dirty with us, then we'll make space for you, right? You can make space for yourself and you can help others make space. And if you think about Bitcoin and the white paper, why was it introduced? Why was it created? It was created off the back of the financial global crisis. A group of people was like, why do these individuals have so much power over our economic lives? The impact that they have affects the economy, and that economy then affects us, the small Janes and Joes, So how can we take back the power? And when you think about it on that level, it is so empowering. It's like, yes, I'm going to take back the power, and blockchain is a tool. It is a way for us to do that. Be it through NFTs, be it through crypto, be it through other forms of crypto assets, there's so much to learn. And when we think about this pandemic, the COVID pandemic, it has affected more women than it has men, simply because of the gender roles, right? So there's a lot of women out there who think that they're past their sell by date. Some of them think that, how am I going to transition my skill sets? Blockchain is the space that you can look at, but if you don't know about it, how can you explore it? And that is the reason why I created and have launched the Inclusivity and Diversity campaign to entice, invite, bring in 50,000 new women. And if other diverse marginalized groups come in off the back of it, which would include men, that's all good. But the focus is to bring 50,000 women into the space because diversity matters, inclusivity matters, because we are a diverse world. And we want this technology, We want blockchain technology because it's here to stay, right? We want this technology to represent all of us, not just some of us, but all of us. And so a lot of us are demanding that and taking the steps to ensure that for this generation and the next generation coming up.
I love your rallying cry, taking the power back. Immediately reminds me of a Public Enemy song. I love that album, by the way. So, I just love, the two key words I mentioned, inclusivity and diversity. Yeah. And of course, that basically sums up why your company or your organization is a social impact company. And this wonderful 50,000 women into blockchain by 2023 campaign. How is it going so far? And in terms of the, of course, when we start something new from zero, definitely, the initial days are going to be hard, right? It's going to be an uphill climb, especially, for those who are driving change, in this space. And we all know that it's dominated by all this, men, of course, white people as well. So for someone who is from your background as well, do you find that this is going to be, instead of your weakness, this is actually your strength to actually harness the fact that, of your background and of course being a woman, you're able to actually be, more convincing in terms of like driving this narrative and getting more people to join you in this movement?
100%. It is my strength, but my strength is also my conviction. My strength is also my ability to speak and articulate the mission, the idea, because at the end of the day, you have to show people why it's beneficial to them. And that means you have to be able to communicate in a way that will also stir them up and want to get behind it. And so my aesthetics, yes, is my strength. My background is my strength, but also my ability to communicate and also my passion. No one can question the passion that I have for this. And this is a reason why we all have our own skill sets. We all have our own visions, our own missions. This mission, there's a saying, it's like, no one can understand your mission because it's not their mission. They might say, why are you doing that? How much money are you earning from that? Why would you want to do that when you could just go into the city and get a job and have a cool life and make loads of money? And it's like, but that's not my calling. And I need to feel like my life is something worth living, and so I get up every day feeling empowered and feeling passionate and feeling like, wow, I'm so privileged to be able to do something that I love. And in doing something that I love, I get to help other people, and that is a true privilege. So to answer your question, all of these are strengths. And there's not many people who look like me in this space or in this space doing what I do. And so, yes, it does help galvanize the community. And to ask how it's going, well, the 17th, which I believe is Thursday, that will be 1 month in. And you know what? We're doing good. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. I mean, 2023, that's a good year and a half, 2 years from now. And there is so much to be done and we're breaking it down. We've got a free community for people to come into. So we're launching some community initiatives. We've got the paid membership. So we're creating educational content all the time. Rome was not built in a day. And, before I launched the campaign, everything that I'm saying, we were doing anyway. But how do you get people to know about it? And that is the reason why we launched the campaign. And the beautiful thing about the campaign is powered by a quiz. It's all about gamification. It's always, again, low entry to barrier or a low barrier to entry, meaning that somebody taking a quiz is so much easier than someone coming to a workshop and hearing about blockchain and thinking, I don't understand anything that person has said. A quiz, it's teachable. You can give teachable moments. And so it makes it more accessible for all types of people to take it and explore this space. It may not be for them, but you know what? It just might be for them and it could change their lives, just like it's changing a lot of women's lives right now. And men, of course.
Most definitely. 50,000 is a huge number. You can just tell any podcaster who's trying to build a community for 100, even that's a huge challenge. 50,000. How is this challenge going to be something that you're not unfazed by? And are you relying a lot on all these new platforms that are sprouting up here and there, like Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces, even podcasts, which are doing a really successful show, your own show as well? And, what are some of the most successful things that you've done to actually market your campaign and to actually see the results where you see a huge spike in growth in terms of women joining in this space?
LinkedIn is my social media playground. I love LinkedIn. So I also run a monthly, I've been doing this for a long time. So before the campaign came, I was doing the monthly flagship events, Women in Blockchain Talks. And it's called Women in Blockchain Talks because I talk to women. So with that being said, we've got a following from that. And so, of course, you bring the right people in, they bring their followers in. So I'm very much about relationship marketing. Relationship marketing is one of the best ways to put forward your campaign, a mission, a passion, especially when you're doing it with people who have the same vision as you and who are like-minded. And so it's not just about social media. It's not just about the events. But, what we do is about networking. Because how do you help people find jobs if you're not networking with people who have the jobs? And as you're doing that, you can say, hey, I'd love to have you on my show. And so they come onto your show and they tell their followers. And all of a sudden, you just start building. I'm so not worried about the number. The number doesn't faze me. The number's just a number. Because, if you want to reach for the stars, you've got to aim for the moon. Or if you want to go for the moon, you've got to aim for the stars, right? It's about the quality rather than the quantity. So the aim is 50,000. I believe we will get there. But for me, the most important thing is the quality of the impact that I make on the people that I meet along the journey.
And that's winning mindset and attitude, and it's rubbing on me as well. We all know that building, community is very, really hard. But congratulations that these are all going on smoothly right now, and you're seeing more people join community. Do welcome NFT artists as well, because this particular festival is a NFT theme. So I have many, NFT artists, especially women folk, especially last, I think a week or two ago, I have 4 NFT women artists from this NFT marketplace called Digital who came on to this show, and all of them were screen sharing their art, for example. And these are artists in the NFT space. Do you find that, in terms of your inclusivity and diversity, you welcome anyone who is maybe in different segments of the, in the space, and you basically welcome anyone who has even the slightest interest to be part of a community, and you don't shun them away?
Of course. I mean, this is blockchain is vast. So, I am here to educate people about this space, and a part of this space, a big part of this space, is NFTs. Some of you listening, even yourself, Wayne, you may have heard of the Grammy Award artist Imogen Heap. And she actually was the first ever music artist, to publish a song on the blockchain. And she has done things around NFTs. And so she's part of our community. She did a talk for us a couple of weeks back. So, yeah, we're very big on supporting all types of people in this space. Of course, our focus is on women, and NFTs are a great way of creating wealth, So there's a community in the Philippines who use NFTs in order to live. And I think that's absolutely amazing. So NFTs don't have to be the imagery or the artwork or piece of artwork where you're getting $1 million. You might just create NFTs and make, for some people in different parts of the world, $20, $10, and that's a huge amount of money for them. And some other people, it's 1,000 or 100,000, right? And so one of the things that we're doing is that Women in Blockchain Talks is not just about talking about a concept. We also want to share concepts. So one of the things that we're looking to do actually next month in collaboration with one of the top NFT platforms is we're putting together a masterclass, and in that masterclass you're actually going to come out with an NFT. So you're going to go in with nothing and you will come out with an NFT. And that's what we're about. We want to make it tangible, we want to make it fun, and of course educational, so that you can say, I know how to do this now, let me keep honing my skill set so that I can start using it to create and improve my circumstances.
I think it's brilliant, that you're bringing together people from all walks of life, different professions, and from different countries and cities as well. And music artists as famous as Imogen Heap, right? I think it's great that she's part of your community and also providing value to those who are tuning in as well. It's great that no one is too big, too popular, or too small, or too unpopular. Everyone is welcome. I think that's the key takeaway message for me, talking to you for the past 20 minutes. And of course, since we're on a topic of NFTs, right, I definitely don't want to waste this opportunity to ask you, in terms of your views about NFTs, right, what do you think is missing from this NFT ecosystem at present? What do you want to see built?
You know what? There's one thing, what I like about NFTs is that it's about tokenization. Tokenization is about value, right? And I've seen cases, heard cases about tokenizing oneself. Sports stars have done it. Even some celebrity blockchainers, crypto ladies have tokenized themselves, right? And it caused a lot of controversy. Some people will always use their aesthetics to try and sell, a tokenization of themselves. But the point I'm making right here, right now, is there's so many individuals, right, across the board, but I'm going to say women because this is the area that I really understand and know. We don't value us, or we don't put enough of a value on ourselves. And what I like about NFTs, it brings into it brings up a conversation about value and how much value we put on ourselves and on tokenization, the tokenization of us and what we're creating. And I love that that conversation is not necessarily becoming mainstream, but it's just becoming more popular. More people are talking about it and looking at how they value themselves, because how we value ourselves is so important in how we move through the world and how much of our power we give to other people because of the value that we think we don't have, when in actuality we're more powerful than we think we are. So I love that conversation that comes from NFTs and tokenization of self.
What do you think women folk or women NFT creators are struggling with when it comes to marketing their work?
If I'm honest,
is it telling that it's something that they're finding a big challenge at this moment?
If I'm honest with you, I don't know enough to answer that question, because I know about NFTs. I like NFTs. I know NFT artists, but I haven't delved into it to understand what their challenges are. If I know what their challenges are, then I will find a solution. And to be quite honest, there's conversations that I'm having in the background that I can't talk about right now, which is going to really open up an opportunity for female NFT artists, creators. So watch this space. If you are listening to this, get in touch, and I'm more than happy to share with you what that is. But it's not my project to speak about, but it's a project that I'm part of. And I think it's very interesting, very exciting. And if there are women out there who are saying, I'm struggling, this is a problem, how do I market? Then this will be a solution for you.
This is fantastic. And I could see that you're constantly innovating and collaborating and bringing on, newer platforms for women folk who are struggling with marketing their work to even find a voice or a platform which is in your community. And this is all getting, is in terms of like the future for NFT artists, especially women folks, right? They are going to be able to leverage so much more support and community voices. So it's great what you're doing, and thank you so much, for actually sharing, what your community is all about, and this social impact company in terms of your goals and your objectives as well. So before we let you go, maybe we do a segment which is a rapid fire segment. I'm gonna just bombard you a few questions. You have to maybe stick to the rules. Make sure you give pithy and short responses, 1 or 2 sentences maximum. So, are you ready?
I'm ready. Bring it
What
on.
Proudest life moments?
My proudest life moments. I've got many, but one of them was moving to the beautiful city of Barcelona when I was 23. It was a very brave move for me. So yeah, that's one of my proudest life moments.
Are you still living in Barcelona at the moment?
No, I came back many years ago. So I'm in one of the greatest cities in the world, London town, baby.
Fantastic. I love London. What do you want doing less of in the rest of 2021?
Staying indoors.
What do you want doing more of in 2021?
This is going to be an oxymoron compared to what I just said, but sleeping, because I'm not getting enough sleep at the moment. When you're on fire and you're on mission, sleep is, it's for the weak.
It's lower priority. I could sense that, and I think I have to take my thoughts and sentiments as well. Your advice for women folk entering this blockchain, crypto, NFT world?
Be brave, be bold, step in, step up, stop making excuses. This is your time. This space is here for you. You don't need to ask anyone's permission to come in here. If you need the help is here. So don't make excuses. Be bold, be brave, step up, step in, step out.
Inspiring stuff. Any future ambitions or side projects in the pipeline?
Oh yeah, there's so many. One of the things that we're looking to do is a retreat in Costa Rica next year. So that's already in the pipelines. We're also looking to launch a global chapter program. So we want to have, for example, Women in Blockchain Talks Tokyo, Women in Blockchain Talks Barcelona. So, if you think you're a leader and you're ready to step up, step in and step out, then definitely get in touch with Women in Blockchain Talks.
How about Singapore? I know a few women folk in Singapore who definitely want to take charge of your new branch, in this part of the world. So probably after this, let's connect a few names, and maybe they can actually, be part of your community as well. Last question: how can people reach you?
The best way in this context is find me on LinkedIn. I'm very prolific. I'm easy to find. Google me, and then there's a website, Women in Blockchain Talks. We've got an event coming up. We have an event every month. So if you just Google Women in Blockchain Talks, you'll be able to find us, or just my name. So yeah, I'm easy to find.
Thank you, Lavina. Any last words or message for our listeners while replaying this podcast on your AirPods or smart speakers later on?
I just want to say a big thank you to you, Wayne, for inviting me on and allowing me to share what I'm doing. It's so important that we have individuals, male champions like you, and PodFest Asia. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Go there and check out my my podcast as well, Women in Blockchain Talks, who you never know, I might have you on. And for anyone who's listening in regards to blockchain, don't fear what you don't know. Don't fear it. We don't know what we don't know. Just ask the questions. And Women in Blockchain Talks is definitely a safe place to ask the questions.
I super appreciate you. So thank you for coming on and gracing our event. So I look forward to catching up with you in a future follow-up episode, maybe the next time in the metaverse when we are wearing our VR goggles and discussing about blockchain and your future plans as well. So thank you so much once again. Have a great day in London. So I'll see you hopefully next time when I travel there, and when the borders are reopened, I can be in London and I'll say hi to you when I'm there. So looking forward to that. Yeah.
Sounds great. Bye.
Bye. Cheers. And that's Lavina Osbourne. So she's a award-winning host and also founder of Women in Blockchain Talks. Do connect with her on LinkedIn and find out more about the activities and how you can be part of their global community. They're trying to hit 50,000 women. That's the number that they're trying to hit for this current campaign that they're running. So do check them out. And before I go, maybe just one last public service announcement. I used to not do a lot of public service announcement, but I think I just am super excited because our Substack page is up, complementing the one we already have going on successfully in Patreon. So for those who are just tuning in, or new listeners of our show, my name is Wayne. I'm the founder of PodFest Asia. I want to take a second to thank you for watching this live podcast taping or listening to this podcast replay. And I want to give a special thank you to the supporters that we have on Patreon since 2020 and those who are now joining us on Substack. Our Patreon and Substack accounts make this podcast possible. It makes all these interviews and all the thoughts that you hear right now possible. So we are very grateful to everyone who supports the creator economy and the myriad of new shows that we recently launched in May and June 2021. And if you would like to support, you can actually go to PodFest Asia Substack.com. I think the URL is right below on the left. So make sure I'm pointing the right way. That's the URL to go support us. And make sure that you go hit that URL on your browser. You can become a supporter, get access to some cool bonus episodes that we release every month for supporters only. You could even get access to our free NFTs of the month club. We send out really cool digital collectibles every single month, and it keeps my mouth talking. It keeps my head giving and taking as well, and it keeps all this going. So if you like the podcast and you would like to support the podcast, we would really appreciate it. And that's the message before I end the show. So I'll be back tomorrow with Steve Willis from Down Under, Australia. He'll be coming on to share some of his psychedelic-inspired NFT art. So I'll be back on tomorrow morning, 7:30 a.m. Singapore time. So for those in New York or East Coast, that's going to be 7:30 p.m. for you over there. So I'll be back with more live taping of our podcast episodes. So Wayne Chung signing off. Do check out our Substack. Good night.